Realer than real. Realer than real.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the podcast, episode 2. I am so excited to be here, and I'm excited to be here every day. Hallelujah. Y'all, I'm gonna be honest, right now I'm in an immense amount of pain. I don't know what's going on, but I'm having like these really weird, like I don't want to say they're muscle spasms. I've had muscle spasms only once before, and they hurt so bad to the point where I was crying. But I also could have been crying because I was very stressed out at the time, and I was just like, oh great, another thing happening. So I don't think it's muscle spasms based on my Google searches, which Lord knows how helpful those can be, and I'm saying that ironically. I think I'm experiencing like the effects of muscle strain, but it's in my back near my ribs, which ribs are around the lungs. Every time I inhale, there is just a pain that is pretty unbearable. So I was really not trying to film this podcast episode right now, but I was like, you know what, if I don't get it done now, I'm gonna put it off. And what a bad tone that would set for my second episode, to like have to rush it. And I won't say it's even worse, but like obviously, or maybe not obviously, but for those who don't know, I don't do content creation full time, even though my back. Even though I keep taking on different projects as if I have all this extra time, I simply do not. I work a full-time job. And you know, in addition to that, I'm doing the podcast, I'm doing the YouTube, I'm doing the TikTok, I'm doing all the things. But in doing so, I'm really just trying to commit to myself this year. That sounds so cringy, but like, it's the truth. Last year, when it came to content, mainly when I was just doing TikTok, if I even got an inkling of not wanting to do something, I wouldn't. But last year was definitely my year to like, just give myself some grace. Eventually I'll talk about this in the podcast, but I would say, especially after I lost my mom, anytime I wanted to treat myself or give myself some grace or just rot in bed all day, I would. And I think that you should do that for yourself regardless. But in doing so, I definitely felt like I was letting myself down. I feel like I talked about this last week on the podcast. I don't remember, because I talked for over an hour, and when I finished it, I was like, did I even say anything that was like worth listening to? I guess we'll see. But thank you all so much for tuning into the first episode. I got a lot of good feedback, so love y'all for that. But anyway, like I was saying, I had to like really just get serious with myself and be like, you spent so much money on all this equipment to do all these different platforms, and now every day that you don't do something, you're wasting your money. And I usually don't like to have such a negative self-talk way with myself, especially when I'm going through everything that I've gone through and everything that, you know, I continue to go through. But I had to, and now we're here. Just, you know, just to get real, if I can be vulnerable on main for a second, for those who have the benefit of the audio, no, not the audio, the video for on YouTube, yes, this absolutely is an iced chai latte I made. But the key about that, why that is an absolute key, is it because it is 10:08 p.m. I'm drinking an iced chai latte at 10:08 p.m. But that was, again, because I didn't feel like filming this. So I'm like, you know what? Let me get my chai latte, let me set up, and let me just sit down and start talking. Because fortunately for me, when I get to start talking, I don't stop. So it'll get me in the mood. Did I do my intro yet? I don't think I did my intro. I'm almost 4 minutes in and haven't done an intro. Let's do it. He, she, gays, and theys, welcome back to the Realer Than Real podcast. I am your host, Shamira. Sometimes in this world, we keep things real. We keep things very real. And we keep things on this podcast realer than real. I know that was not bar for bar, word for word what I said in the first episode, but I'm gonna get better and I'm gonna memorize it. Speaking of keeping things realer than real, I'm about to be very real. And be a woman of my word and make an apology. Isn't it such a gag that I'm already having to make an apology on my second podcast episode? honestly kind of iconic, but anywho. So just for a little background, little context, to promote my first episode of my podcast, I made the podcast a TikTok, which if you're not following it, let me go ahead and pull up this username so you can have it. Bust out your pens and papers, everybody. If you want to follow the podcast on TikTok, the username is Realer Than Real Pod. And for that matter, if you want to follow the podcast on Instagram, the username is The Realer Than Real Podcast. Basically the same. Essentially, if you're looking it up and you see a beige background picture with black and pink text surrounded by a pink square, you found the page. But on TikTok, I posted a clip from the podcast from last week where I talked about Ariana Grande, and I ruffled some feathers, rightfully so. I knew that's what the clip was going to do. That's why I put the clip out. I wanted the Ariana fans to see it. I don't necessarily call it clickbait because it's not like I lied about what I was talking about in the podcast, but in any regard, I did have a few people comment on the TikTok, I had a few people comment on Instagram, and I had a few people comment or send me DMs on various platforms just saying like, hey, bestie. They did not say bestie, but most of them were basically kind. And they just said, hey, you have your information wrong. Somebody clocked me for saying, the comment literally said, I can tell by the way you say Ariana. No, whatever. I can tell by the way you say Ariana that you're only here for the drama. I am so sorry. Because when I posted a TikTok about the podcast on my own TikTok page, I said Baychella instead of Beachella, which I know that her name is Beyonce, so everything she puts B or B-E-Y in front of is going to be pronounced B. I just upset so many people with my first episode, and I'm so sorry, everybody. But particularly with Ariana Grande, a lot of the information that I base my opinions on, you know, a lot of the information about Ariana and Ethan Slater's wife were friends, and she went to the house and she held the baby and stuff. You know, that was all based off of false things that Page Six put out there. So I base my opinions off of things that were untrue, or at least not, they were not corroborated by reliable sources. So in that regard, I want to say that anything that I said about Ariana or the situation based on that, I would like to recant and give my sincerest apologies. But I still have my suspicions. My only thing is that, let me see how I'm going to say this, because I don't want to upset anybody. I don't know. I take it back. I'm not going to, this is not like one of those apologies where people are like, I'm sorry you felt that way. No. I'm genuinely sorry that I made opinions on something that I didn't know all the facts on. But with that being said, I guess we'll just sit back and see how things unfold. Let's see. So right before this, when I was still on the fence about if I was going to record the podcast or not, I remember last week I said something about how I'm really bad at watching TV shows that people like recommend to me, TV shows and movies. I'm really bad at it. But for some reason, if I'm like scrolling on TikTok or something and I see a clip of something, I'll be more inclined to watch that. So maybe if you want me to watch something that you send me, we just have to like become friends on TikTok. No, you know what it is? Really, no. Yeah, we have to be following each other on TikTok. If you see a clip of a show you like, just repost it and then it'll pop up on my For You page. And then I'll be like, oh, I want to watch this show now. That's the only way y'all can get to me now. But with that being said, nobody told me to watch Pen 15 on Hulu, but I'd seen a few clips of it. And at first I was like, oh, I'm not watching this show because this woman with this bowl cut stresses me out so much. She's so like emotional. I'm going to try not to do any spoiler alerts, even though I kind of feel like I might be the last person on earth to start this show. But I was like, oh no, she's going to piss me off. But I just started watching it just now. I think I'm about 6 episodes in. I'm addicted. And I was trying to look up something and I already, well, let me not say anything, but I'm interested to see how the show will continue. But I'm just so interested in it now. So maybe when I first started this podcast, when I was like telling people about it and I was thinking, they were like asking me, how are you gonna run it? Like, what are you gonna do on the podcast? I kept mentioning how I wanted to have segments, and maybe my first segment is like just updating y'all on like new things I've listened to or watched. So maybe next week I can have, like, if I can get through season 1 of Pen 15, I can update y'all on what that is. But there will be spoilers, so all that, you know. Saying that to say that if you don't want it to be spoiled, watch it. Because you don't have an option to skip this part. You need to watch it. You either need to watch it or you just need to let me describe it to you so you feel like you watched it. But I will say that I do have a show that I just recently finished, and holy Toledo Batman, it was a doozy. So it's on Amazon Prime, and it is called Them. It is a short anthology about, I guess it takes place, I want to say, like the 50s and 60s. And it follows a black family as they move from, I think they moved from North Carolina to Compton. Because at this time, Compton was like a predominantly white space. And it was like supposed to be like, not luxurious, but definitely like middle class. Definitely a step up from where they were living before. And when I tell you, I think about, I don't know if the directors, the writers, the producers, whoever, I don't know if they had this quote in mind, and I don't remember where I saw this quote, but I saw a quote once that said, the black experience in America is horror. And that is essentially what that show encapsulates. And it is one of the most psychologically thrilling, dark, but like, almost like, it clearly, how do I put this? I'm so bad at describing shows, but clearly some parts in it are like, oh, that's not real. This is a psychosis kind of moment. But there are honestly some parts in it where I feel like being a black person in America, it's like, yeah, that's exaggerated, or yeah, that's a psychosis, but honestly, real. Like, I kind of feel it. And I don't know, the show, I recommend it if you don't mind like scary, and I will say like very dark things. And I don't know if on the episodes they do it, but I will say trigger warning. I don't even know if I can say that word because I want to adhere to like censoring myself on social media, but trigger warning, actual say assault. I don't know how to do pig Latin for assault, but yeah, just saying trigger warning for those episodes. I would say honestly, if that's something that triggers you, to please look ahead at the episode to know which one it is, because it's rather graphic. But, and also if you don't mind like psychological thriller stuff, because some parts of it, I ended up watching most of it during the day, but the episodes that I did watch at night, I was like, ooh girl, let me sleep with an extra light on or something. But that's a really good show. And it sucks because it's a short series, but honestly, something I was about to say may have spoiled it, but there's not really a way that you can take that show, because if it's based on current times, I mean, not to spoil the ending, but we kind of know where things ended up for black Americans in the United States. So it's an interesting show. I really, really like it. I do not know if I could watch it again, but there was a moment in time. It has the daughter from, oh, what's that Jordan Peele movie? Is it Us? What's the one with Lupita Nyong'o? Let me think. Hold on. He has Get Out. He has Nope. Is that movie called Us, or am I making that up? You know the movie I'm talking about. Desert. That movie. It has the daughter from that. And it's an interesting look at how black oppression affects every member of a household. So the main characters in the story, which is his black family, I forget their last name, but it's like a mom and a dad, and then it has the older sister, a younger daughter, maybe like in kindergarten, kind of like that like age range, and then they have like a baby, like a very cute. The kid that they casted to play the son is possibly the cutest baby I've ever seen in my life. Just so cute, so precious. But I've just never seen a show that was written so well before. I said I lied earlier. I said I wouldn't watch it again, but I would honestly, now that I know what happens in each episode, I would watch it again to kind of study it a little bit more, just to like truly understand what the show makers, the creators, were trying to convey with each character. Oh man, I wish I could talk about it on here. I don't want to spoil it for anyone in case anyone wants to listen to it or not listen, but if anyone wants to watch it, I think it's about 9 or 10 episodes. So it's very, very short. It's very bingeable. You could sit down. If you're the type of person that can binge watch TV shows, and if anything I've said so far, if I've even made any sense so far, and this has intrigued you even a little bit, I would say go ahead and watch it. I'm gonna flip a coin really quick because I want to know if it's a good idea to talk about it or not. I certainly don't want to spoil it, and I feel like actually I'm gonna talk about it, but also want y'all to know this about me. Any decision I can't make, I literally go on Google, I type in heads or tails, and I flip this coin. I think the coin's gonna say I can talk about it. Perfect. If you are gonna watch the show and you don't want to hear this, you should start fast forwarding. Okay, so for those of you who stuck around, okay, well, I want to start with the older daughter character, because she is, at least how I interpreted her character, she is this like confident like teenage black girl. She understands the situation that they're in. She has to kind of be like the voice of reason to her little sister, but she also is like, while being very secure in herself, she is also still kind of afraid. And so in moving to this all-white space, both of the children have to go to all-white schools. And so the daughter, she goes to the school, and so her opening scene, her first exposure to this kind of being in this white space and being so isolated, is when she's in class. The teacher asked a question. I forget, she asked like maybe who wrote this book or who wrote this poem, and Ruby Lee is the daughter's name. Ruby Lee is the only girl that knows the answer, so she answers the question. And I have never, any time that I watch something with racial undertones in it, I'm always just shocked to see like how far the writers will go to convey that a character is racist. This show takes place in the 1950s, so I should have known some foul things were gonna happen. When I tell y'all, when this little girl answered this question and they had the characters making monkey noises in the back, y'all, I had to pause it. I said, you cannot be serious. Like, again, I get it. Racist undertones, it's a very racial situation. Like, you really want to drive home the harsh reality that black people in the 50s and 60s had to go through when they enter these predominantly white spaces, especially when they're unwelcomed. But holy Toledo, making monkey noises? Oh, girl, please. So she's experiencing this, and in the show, she makes this friend. And from the viewer's point, we're like, oh, this person is real. This is a white girl who becomes friends with Ruby Lee, and she makes her feel comfortable. As we get further and further into the show, like I said earlier, the psychosis of each character, how race can affect the like psyche of a black person, especially when you're in predominantly white spaces. Come to find out, this friend that we thought Ruby Lee had was a figment of her imagination. And then Ruby Lee starts to experience moments of self-hatred. And she, you know, after watching her mother go insane, which I'll talk about her mother in a little bit. After watching her mother go insane, she's seeing constantly all these white people attacking her house. The white people in this neighborhood too, y'all, let me think of a piece. They strung up black dolls outside of their house. Mind you, it's the 50s and 60s, so they strung them up in a particularly offensive way. They burned offensive language onto their lawn. Lord. But after seeing how the psychosis affected her mother, Ruby Lee is like, oh, I don't want to be like my mom. I don't want to be ugly like my mom. And Ruby Lee dunks herself in white paint. I'm talking white paint like on my walls. You can't really tell that my walls are white, can you? Yeah, you can. You can tell. White refrigerator. Sorry. I'm just a lexicon full of references, but anywho, just that, the character arc is so interesting. Now, to me, my favorite character in the series is Lucky. Lucky is the mom. I don't know the actress that plays the mom, but when I say gorgeous, I mean gorge Tina. Gorge-tastic, honey. That woman is stunning. You know what I also like? I mean, I love when we have all black cast of anything, but I particularly like that this family didn't follow the two dark-skinned parents and then like a light-skinned sister and then a dark-skinned like younger sibling. It was an all dark-skinned family, which they probably they probably did on purpose to further drive the difference between the black family that moves to Compton and then this all white neighborhood that they're in. But I also thought the casting was really good. I thought that the family all looked like a real family to me. But the mom, Lucky, the reason that they moved from North Carolina to Compton, something happens. This was the thing that I was talking about that was real dark. This is the thing where I gave the trigger warning. And it takes a few episodes to figure out exactly what happened. But one day, Lucky and the baby, the young baby, like the baby son that they have, a baby boy that they have, they're in the house and they live like in this, you know, beautiful like wooden house. I don't know how to describe it, but it's very much like you can tell it's a house in the South. And then this white woman, she comes down this road and she's very creepy looking. And her voice, she's like, "Oh, what a lovely day. Is that your baby in the back?" Like, just real Southern, real, like, scary sounding white woman. She comes and she starts singing this song in, like, this really eerie, high-pitched voice. And then it's, like, the old woman, and then she's, like, two men with her. And they end up surrounding the house. And I will not go into detail because I'm not even gonna lie, y'all. That part, like, I can still see that scene vividly, and as it was going on, I kept thinking, no, this is not gonna happen. No, this is not gonna happen. All I'm gonna say, I thought that they just kidnapped the baby. They did not, and what happened to that baby was so much worse. But so when we're watching the show, we don't see that scene until maybe about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 episodes in. So since then, the second they get to Compton, which at this time is an all-white space, the second they get to Compton, she's paranoid about everything going on. And the husband is constantly trying to tell her, like, you know, calm down. We belong here just as much as them. Like, we can't let them push us out. And I was always on her side. Let me say that. I'm always on her side. But it's made for us to feel like she is overreacting. And the way the first episode ends, I'm trying to remember what exactly caused this. This might have been the doll thing. No. In the first episode, so their first night after spending the night in the house, all the white neighbors, all the white women, and I'm gonna tell you something about this show. This show does a good job of villainizing the white woman. I'm telling y'all right now. But in this scene, all the white women in the neighborhood, they sit out front of this family's house and they play their radios. They all have radios, maybe turned on different stations at varying volumes, all very loud. And they just play music and they blare it into this woman's house. Insane, like absolutely crazy. And the first episode ends with Lucky with I don't want to say it because I'm trying to censor myself, but a piece. If you're watching it on YouTube, you see what my hand is doing right now. A little pew pew piece. And she's like in the street and she's like, "Who wants to try me?" And from that moment on, I was like, oh, I love this woman. But we're made to maybe feel like, okay, Lucky girl, you're kind of like, might be losing a little bit. But when we see the episode of what actually happened to her son and what those white people did when they came into her house, it makes so much more sense. Which then confuses me why the father is so like, "Oh, Lucky, calm down, like, we'll be okay. Do you know what just happened back down there in North Kakalaki? And you want to act like this? Girl, please." Anyway, I don't want to harp on this show too much because I do want to talk. Let me pull up my notes. I think I have 2 other shows on the list that I want to talk about. So I don't want to harp on this show too much, but who knew? Who knew that this podcast episode would center around TV shows so much? Oh, okay, that was on the list. Okay, I thought that I went off on the beaten trail, but I did not. This was on the list. I'm gonna take a quick break because I want to fill up my water bottle, and then I'll be right back and we'll talk about the next show. I realized I filled up my water bottle just now and I have so much of my chai latte left, it's actually kind of comical. Take a quick sip of that. I put honey in it this time and I feel so above it all. So speaking of shows that I've been watching, I have been recently watching the when we talk about the creme de la creme of Disney Channel shows, I'm going to give you a second to think about what I'm going to say right now. No, I'll give you 2. If you did not say That's So Raven, babe, you don't know quality TV. Because as I'm watching That's So Raven, I'm watching it on Hulu now. Shout out to Hulu. Actually, no, JK. Stop raising your prices and then maybe I can give you a shout out. But when I'm looking at shows like That's So Raven, now I want to say my official hard stop of watching Disney Channel shows was probably, I feel like I remember watching episodes of Ant Farm, which was China Anne McClain's show. That's where that meme of that, I'm almost sure that's where the meme of that like kid in the purple shirt like being interviewed came from. Y'all know the meme I'm talking about. Let me see if I can pull it up. If you don't have the video format, I mean, if you're not watching this on YouTube, just Google it along with me. Hold on. Purple shirt kid. Oh my God, I can't spell. It's so much pressure. I'm almost sure. No, yes, this one. This is where this meme came from. Oh my God, I need the camera to focus. That's where it came from. It wouldn't focus, but you get the gist. But I'm pretty sure that was my hard stop on watching it. So I know that people really enjoyed Girl Meets World. Yeah, which was like Corey and Topanga's like child. Sabrina Carpenter was on there. I know people really like that show because it dealt with some pretty heavy topics. I also kind of heard, and this might be one of those things where it's like people liked it at first, but now years later people are like, oh wait, it was actually kind of cringe, because I've been seeing some commentary, not recently, this was maybe about like, we'll say like 3 months ago, where people were like, I know we all kind of liked that show at first, but wasn't some of the stuff just like kind of, it was like, what's the phrase they said in that one Family Guy bit? It insists upon itself. Sometimes I think that TV shows, when they want to make a statement, when they want to take a stance on something, I feel like there's a way to do it that isn't so like, we're taking a stance, we're woke, we're progressive. And I feel like that's the commentary I hear about Girl Meets World. But anyway, back to That's So Raven. That's So Raven seamlessly handled a lot of tricky topics, especially later on in the seasons. You know, they did a show about, or they did an episode about racism. They did one about like body acceptance. What are some of the ones I've seen? They even did one about like children who are children of parents who have been divorced. I phrased that really weirdly, but you know what I'm trying to say. So That's So Raven just has covered a vast amount of topics. But even beyond that, I find myself being genuinely entertained. And it's not a laugh, like laughing at like Key and Peele sketch funny moments, but like there are a lot of moments in there that are like genuinely funny. But I'm saying all that to say that it was very well written, and a lot of it still stands the test of time. It's very entertaining. Raven-Symoné, I mean, she still is acting, but she's been an actress for a very long time. Even before That's So Raven, she was on The Cosby Show, and she's probably done several other roles as like a toddler, like, or just a young kid. So she has been in the acting game for a very long time, but she's a very like captivating actress. She's very expressive on Disney, but it doesn't ever come across as like the Disney acting. I think it was the Jonas Brothers who said something along the lines of like, you know, they teach you a certain way to act, which is very like animated and very like, well, you know, he's right behind me, isn't he? Like, it's not, I mean, I guess that kind of like Disney acting, and I don't really get that from any of the characters on That's So Raven, especially not in the main cast. Some of the like extras, sure, but or not the extras, but like kind of like secondary characters of an episode, or even just like some reoccurring characters. But all of the characters, they just convey these, or all of the actors convey these characters so well that like they feel very real. And that's something, I mean, I guess I felt as a child, which is why watching these episodes now, they feel so like ingrained in my brain. And even for the, you know, for the girls that get it, if you get it, you get it. Y'all remember the musical episode where they thought that like some talent scout was coming to their high school, so they were all performing? I was watching the episode the other day, and Raven was doing her song in the end, and I was so surprised how, like, I was just saying the words like second nature. Like, it was like, I wasn't consciously trying to remember the songs, or like the words to her song. They were just coming out of me, and I was like, dang, like, this episode used to be my shit. Like, this show used to be my bread and butter. But I'm saying all of this to say, that's my favorite, like, segue phrase, I guess now. I'm saying all this to say, there is nothing I've enjoyed more while watching That's So Raven. Well, one, seeing the boys in motion. I just made a TikTok about this today. But if you've never seen it, if you've never seen the boys in motion performance of the episode that has the boys in motion, you guys, there's a scene where they have 3 grown men who are playing this boy band, Boys in Motion. Shout out Columbus Short, because he plays one of the boys. Where they are full on squatting position, both hands on knees, back arched. We give you our devotion. And they ate that up. But anyway, that's one of the other things I've enjoyed. But there is nothing more I've enjoyed than watching the storyline between Raven and Devon. As far as it goes for me, her and Devon was my endgame. The second, I don't think he pops up to the second season. The second his character comes on the screen, I was so happy. I remember as a kid being so here for them. Like, that was my end game couple. Anybody that came before Devon, irrelevant. Anybody that's coming after Devon, don't even matter. That's my end game right there. And it's so my end game that, spoiler alert, when Devon's father gets remarried and Devon they have to leave, because where do they live? San Francisco. They have to leave for San Francisco because they're moving to Seattle. Guess which 27-year-old was sitting in their apartment crying on that episode? I definitely had to grab a tissue. Definitely had to blow my nose a little bit. Y'all, I was heartbroken. How could Disney do that to me? How could Disney give me a couple that I want to win so bad? Because they were so cute together. My favorite thing about Raven and Devon being together is that throughout the entire show history, Raven is always like competing for a guy's love. She's always like trying her best to get the guy. And we see, especially in the first season, like the first episode I'm thinking about is the one where they do like a dance that's themed after like the Dark Ages, right? And Raven wants to go with a super artsy guy, but she ends up going with Ben Stinky Sturkey. And the entire time she's in the classic situation of like, oh, I have 2 days to the prom, what am I gonna do? So the whole time she keeps switching back and forth. She's trying to basically give Ben the ick to get him off of her because he really likes her, and she's trying to impress this other guy. And this is so sad for like a Disney show. I guess I forgot how deep some of these episodes would be, but obviously Raven has visions, and in her vision, the guy that she's interested in, he's like, oh, Ray, I've always liked you. So in between Raven going back and forth, trying to talk to both guys, she ends up chasing the guy of her dreams out in the hallway. Whole time he's talking to some other girl. I forget what her name is, but oh, it might have been Rachel when he calls her Ray. Whatever. But he's basically telling this girl, I'm just here with Raven for pity. I've always wanted to be with you. You were always my dream girl. And seeing how hurt Raven got, that's when it really clicked for me. I was like, why do y'all keep putting her through this? Can she get some type of happiness? And so when Devon's character gets introduced, that is what I see him as. I see him as someone who loves her for her. He knows how wacky she is. He, like, you guys, they're just so cute to get, like, he's also that actor. Hey, he's kind of cute too. I know he was on a few episodes of Raven's Home, but I don't know if he's like a recurring character. But I kind of want to watch it next, only because having watched this, and like I was saying earlier, I have such an appreciation for Raven-Symoné as an actress, because I forget that like this was not her first show. And also while she was doing this, she was on Disney, I don't know if this came before That's So Raven, but I remember she played, oh my god, who played Xenon? Y'all know who I'm talking about. Who played Xenon? But y'all know what I'm talking about, like Xenon, the Space Girl movies. Y'all know what the hell I'm talking about. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century. Yeah, Raven was in that movie. Okay, yeah, that was definitely before That's So Raven. But she was in that. She was voicing the best friend on Kim Possible. She was doing Cheetah Girls. And I remember she was in that movie with Eddie Murphy where he like played her dad and they were like traveling across country to go like tour some colleges. Raven was very much booked and busy at her time on Disney. But she was even busy before that because she played the daughter on The Cosby Show. And I know she did things in between. So, like, just as I'm watching That's So Raven and I'm watching her be this captivating character that I find myself rooting for every single time a new episode starts, even though I know it's the same formula, Raven has a vision. She thinks she knows what's going to happen based on that vision, even though several times before we see that most of the time the vision does not include the full story. Or she could have just solved her problem another way just by talking. But you know what I like about Raven is that very rarely, well, that's kind of a lie, but it's kind of like one of the charms of her character. Sometimes she does act out of selfishness, but a lot of the times, like I just watched the episode where Chelsea makes Raven, or Chelsea uses Raven as a muse for a statue, and she makes Raven into a like human slash bird. She gives her a beak, and Raven first Raven expresses how much she doesn't like the statue, and then she bumps into the statue by accident. She breaks it, and because Raven is such a good friend and she like wants to always do her best and she never wants to disappoint people, Raven covers herself in clay and feathers and tries to pose as Chelsea's statue like in her like art show. I don't know, man. I really like That's So Raven. Like, I was watching it kind of like as an emotional support show because I'm like, oh, obviously I've seen all this. I can put it on in the background like when I'm working or like when I'm cleaning or something. But now, like, I'm fully invested. Like, I'm very much invested. I might be on season 3 right now, and I think it only has 5 seasons. And honestly, a little known fact about me, one thing about me, when a show gets towards the end, I don't finish it. Because I don't like endings of things, so I just don't watch the endings. There are several shows that, even if it's not close to the ending, if I know I'm on a season finale, I won't finish it. Case in point, what was that show on Netflix? Oh, it was about that kid who was on the spectrum. I know the main character's name is Sam. I just don't know the name of the show. What is an Atypical? Good God, that took me so long. But there's an episode in Atypical where, spoiler alert, basically Sam's character is about to get into like a very like tense situation. And I'm pretty sure that was close to the season finale. And because it was so tense and because it was a season finale, I turned it off and never finished it. I've also never finished Jane the Virgin. Only because someone spoiled it for me online, and now I don't want to finish it. But I'm Team Raphael, because he's fine. Let me see. I'm trying to think of other shows I've never finished. I was almost about to never finish Breaking Bad, but me and my brother have been watching that recently. I've never finished The Wire. I'm trying to think. There's a lot of shows I haven't finished, because I just don't like endings, you guys. Anyway, we're going to take a quick little break, and that's actually a perfect segue because I remember last week I was talking about like cohesive albums that I really like, so I want to take some time to talk about an album that I briefly brought up last week. So we'll take a little break, we'll be right back. I'd like to note how different my appearance is from the first one. Like, I feel like the first one, granted I was wearing sweats and a pullover, but this one I have on a hoodie and sweatpants, but the main thing is I have on no makeup right now. I have on like, you know, the e.l.f. eyebrow lift, shout out to e.l.f., and I have on some Maybelline mascara. Shout out to Maybelline. But I don't really know if you can tell on camera. But keeping it realer than real here. And you know, like I said, right now it is, what time is it? It's 10:55 at night. So, yeah, I was not putting on makeup. I just simply could not. But anyway, anywho, let me readjust really quick. This is about to be so painful because my back is killing me. Oh, God. I would very much like my body to heal. Everyone always talks about like, the body's so magic, it heals on its own. Get there then, babe. Please. I'm suffering. Okay, like I said, we're going to talk about one of my favorite albums. I do like a lot of albums for the most part. even if I think that there are some skips on the album, there is a lot of albums that I think are genuinely good albums from start to finish. Not a single song should be skipped. And I'll even do you one better. It should always be listened to in order. Yes, I believe that. If you have a good album that you like and you don't listen to it in order, it can't be your favorite. No, I'm joking. But I just feel like Adele said, you do yourself a huge disservice when you don't listen to certain albums in order. And one of my favorite albums came from, was it 2021? I kind of lumped the pandemic era all into one, so sometimes I have a hard time distinguishing if something was 2020 or 2021. Let me look it up on Spotify just to make sure. Yes, 2021 is when this album was released. I'm talking about none other than Jasmine Sullivan's Heux Tales. Oh, you guys, when she dropped the single, so the first single from the album was Lost One. And Jasmine Sullivan, I remember like when she teased that she was coming out with music, I remember tweeting something along the lines of like, thank God my unrequited love song Queen is back, because Jasmine has been known for making songs about unrequited love. That's her brand. And so when I heard Lost Ones for the first time, and it wasn't that. Lost Ones, which is I feel like it's very rare for female R&B artists to make songs that like are basically like saying, you know, I'm the problem, like this was my fault. So that was something new for me, especially from Jasmine. But from the second I heard Lost Ones and I fully internalized what the song was saying, I realized that whatever was coming after Lost Ones, whatever this project was going to be, I knew it was going to be something that was very vulnerable and very honest. And I feel like especially in the time of 2020, 2021, when we were all in the house, everybody became so honest with themselves because you were sitting in the house the whole time. You had nothing to do but work on yourself. And so that forced people a lot of the times to look at who you are in the mirror and not just realize I am this positive thing, I am this positive thing, and I deserve these positive things. But it also forced you to look at, okay, but I have a problem with this. And sometimes I can be really this. And when I'm in a bad headspace, I will act this way towards people. And that's what I knew this project was going to be after I heard Lost Ones. And I mean, it did not disappoint. The reason that Heux Tales is such a personal album for me to listen to is I feel like it kind of captures that, like, you know, how many tracks are on the album? I want to make sure I'm getting this right. Oh, Spotify doesn't number it. That means I'm going to have to count. This is embarrassing. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. This 14-track album, it kind of, for me, it so perfectly encapsulates what it's like to be this person, you know, a woman anywhere in her age journey, but particularly if you are going through the dating life. To me, that's what this album perfectly encapsulates, is what it's like to be a single woman going through your dating life. And it just, I wish, I don't want to play any of the songs on here, but I would love nothing more than to just put on the album and just vibe with y'all. Like, if we were if you were sitting in my living room right now and we were just friends having a good old key, I would put on this album and I would be that person that's looking at you as the songs are playing and I'm like, but do you hear what she said? Let me run it back so you hear it. And then she'd do a run and I'd be like, did you hear that run? Let me run it back. Let me just start the song over so you can re-feel it again. This album is so special to me because it is so raw and honest. And I love a fun little cute album. Don't get me wrong. I love something that's fun and just for the girls to have a good time too. But for me personally, and I don't feel like I'm the only person that's saying this, but I'm just saying one of my things, something I like is when I can tell that an artist is really bearing their all on an album or a song or whatever the case may be, because I think vulnerability is so rare in this life. And when someone who is already subjecting themselves to doing, to doing something that is already so, like, I can't imagine being a celebrity and you're putting all this money and time into creating a song, creating an album, and creating music videos and doing press releases and photo shoots for something, and then it flops. Like, I am so not strong enough for that. You would have to pry me out of bed to be like, you know, we have to keep pushing. So I'm just saying all that to say that I'm just so, like, I'm not trying to sound like this crazy fan or whatever, but every time I hear the album and I hear some of the lyrics she says on the album, I'm so just like, I almost feel so honored that she would even share such personal anecdotes with the world, whoever would listen to the album. I'm just like, I'm in awe of that constantly. Vocally on this album, I'd have to say On It is probably really stunning. It's a duet between her and Ari Lennox. And if you've heard the live version that she did on the BET Awards, the song is quite literally about sex. But when I tell you, when they sing it, if you're not listening to the words and you're just listening to the melodies, you would think they're up in there praising. They said, I want to be on it. I'm not a singer, so don't try and judge me. But On It is really beautiful. I think in terms of vulnerability, The Other Side, oh my God, y'all have not heard when Jasmine girl, could come to the front because I know you're listening. When I tell you, The Other Side is so real and so honest. I'm gonna pull up the lyrics right now so we can just go through some of my favorite lines. I mean, all the songs on the album are honest. That's why I like it, but The Other Side is something different. So The Other Side is basically, Jasmine in the song is talking about how, I always say like character in the song because I imagine that the person singing the song is like a character. And so the character in the song is basically kind of vocally manifesting what life would be like if she was rich. And I love it because it's just so honest. Like, she talks about, you know, not having enough rent, think I've run out of favors. But my favorite part is the hook. I'ma move to Atlanta. I'ma find me a rapper. He gonna buy me new booty. Let me star in a movie. That's really it. Like, that's the American dream right there. Move to Atlanta, find you a rapper. And the way she sings it, y'all have, like, if you care about being connected to me at all, you will listen to this album and you will ingrain it in your brains. I'm telling you this right now in January, when we report back to each other in December to talk about our Spotify Wrapped, I want Heux Tales to be in your top 10 like it was for me in 2021. Yeah. The production for this album, so specifically what I like about this album is between each song, there are personal anecdotes. But I like that these personal anecdotes tie all the songs together. And I remember the first time, so like I said, Lost One was the first single off the album. So when I listened to the album all the way through when it first came out, I was so excited to hear the story that was gonna tie into Lost Ones. One of the saddest things, like, I remember, like, damn near being brought to tears because this woman talks about how she was so in love with her girlfriend and, you know, she couldn't wait to marry her, and then she was the one that ended up cheating on her. And that's what Lost Ones is about, by the way. I feel like I didn't say what it's about. In the song, Lost Ones is basically talking, like, the chorus says, don't have too much fun without weight. I don't want to misquote it. It's so funny because I know these songs by heart, but like when I'm trying to like remember the lyric or I'm trying to say it to y'all, I struggle. And I'm not going to sing because I don't want to embarrass myself. Let me head to genius.com. Oh, the Tiny Desk version is amazing. So the pre-chorus is, and if it's too late, I understand. Sometimes it's too late to make amends. But just hear me out before you let go. There's one thing I need for you to know. And then the way she belts into this chorus, just when I'm done with this podcast and I have to clean up to like do my silly little task before I go to bed, I'm putting on that album and I'm blasting it full volume in my headphones. And I'm going to be performing in my apartment. And y'all can't tell me that we all don't do the same. One of the most comforting experiences on TikTok is knowing that I am not the only person that fully commits to performing songs in their apartment as if I'm on my world tour. I'm happy it's right here because I even have a little mic, and you best believe I'm walking around here There's a fire starting in my... I don't know why I started with that song, because I have not listened to Adele in a little bit of a minute now. Recently, it's been all Renaissance all the time. It's been, I try to get all up in your mind. Look at me singing into the imaginary mic and not the real mic. Please. Anyway, you can tell it's late because I'm just bouncing between topics with no real connection. But, oh my goodness. This song, Lost One, it's not my favorite song on the album, but it is one of the ones that is just so honest and just so true to the female experience, it feels like. I feel like oftentimes in the female experience, because it's just not in our nature, but I feel like we don't often talk about the times where we do feel like we fumbled. And I think at its core, that's why I love Lost One so much, because that honesty that is part of the human experience of like, even if you feel like you've been done wrong by every single person in your life, I'm sure that we all have one person in our lives that we're like, I could have treated this person better. There are other songs on the album that I'm just obsessed with. She has a song with Anderson .Paak called Price Tags that is just so like, it's fun. She's doing what I love that singers do when they like sing rap. People have been like kind of poking fun, but also like kind of being serious about Beyonce being a rapper, which low key, yeah. When she said this, that thick, that's that nana, that uchi coochie la la, like, come on, bars. But on that song, Jasmine's kind of rapping, especially in the second verse. She said, what did she say? You wanna see the chip like a boxing, you can feel it, let you toss it. Like, she's rapping and she's singing. It's giving very much iconic, giving very much low key. Lauryn Hill, you didn't hear from me, kind of. And then the second single she released from the album was Pick Up Your Feelings. Vocally, come on now. Every single chorus she's going up, and then on that last chorus it's a key change. She starts everything like, you need to, but then on that last one she's, you need to, like, oh my, and when she gets to that, feel it, like, it's so, oh. I feel like you can tell when I really like something because I don't finish a sentence. Every quote unquote sentence I finish is just, it's like, it's the last word of it, and then it's just, cause I'm just reaching like an all-time high at each point, and I can't go any higher than this. Like, I can't cap it off. So my body just has to eventually just not shut down, but like, it like boots down like a computer. I'm just like, going to sleep now. Heux Tales is a very special album to me. Dare I say, I mean, it's not necessarily like, you know how we did last week, like pop culture moments that like had an influence on me. I won't say it's like a pop culture moment, but it definitely is one of those albums that for me shapes how I look at other artists' projects. I know I can't compare every artist and their album to a Jasmine Sullivan project or a Beyonce project, but I can still use that as a lens, you know? Does your album tell a story? I love a good narrative album. I love albums that seek out to tell a story based on the songs. How are they lined up? What are the lyrics? Do the songs blend together? Another album that does that I've been listening to, maybe not as of late, like recently, but I think back in November I've listened to this album a lot. Olivia Rodrigo's sophomore album, Guts. Guts is a very, very nice album. It's good. It's good. People try to clown her a little bit. I don't know why. I live for her. And I love especially, I really liked her first album because I love sad songs. And that's like mainly what her whole first album was about. But Olivia Rodrigo's second album, Guts, what I like is how, and a lot of people are kind of on the fence about this, but I particularly like how her band is doing a lot of the singing. And she's kind of doing like this talking kind of like singing over it. So like on songs like Get Him Back, on the choruses when she, or on the verses where she's like, I met a guy in the summer and I left him in the spring. You know, you have her like talking, but then you have her band. Like, I'm pretty sure it's the band that's even singing the chorus. I don't know if Olivia is actually singing. If she does, her voice is more blended than it is made to stand out. But I even love like, there's like little background vocals that her band does where it doesn't even feel like, it's not even like backup singers. It's like they're doing another part of the song, and I think it's so cool. How did we get here talking about Olivia? Oh, right, I'm talking about narrative albums. Renee Rapp's EP. What was it called? Oh my god, I'm embarrassing myself because I do love Renee too. Now that's my girl. When we talk about women I love, Snow Angel. Okay, that's what I figured, but I didn't want to be wrong. Snow Angel is a very beautiful song, very deep meaning, but just the album in general is another good one. I just love a good narrative-based album. I love albums that take you on a journey. When I think about other ones, An Evening with Silk Sonic is another one. I'll say this, this is not a shameless plug. I'm not trying to plug myself, but I feel like a lot of people know I like a lot of different artists. You don't know me until you know how much I love Bruno Mars. That's all I'm going to say. And if you go on my YouTube channel, that is very evident. Hey Bruno, I know you're watching. Hi. Okay, I'm going to talk about one last thing. We're going to take a little break. One last thing, I think, and then we might be good to go. Wrap on episode 2. One quick break. We are back for our very last segment. This is something that I wouldn't even say just recently. I feel like I started seeing this on TikTok maybe a month ago. And I just think it would be kind of a fun topic to bring into this little space we have here on these various podcast platforms. So if you are not familiar with the topic of a third space, so basically what the person pointed out is that we would always have, or people of the 80s and 90s or whatever the time may be, they would have work being their first place, home being their second place, and then they have a third social place that takes them away from work and gets them out of the house. And we don't have that nowadays. So like in the case of Friends, for an example, which is an example I see a lot on TikTok, they are in the apartments most of the time. Other times we might see them at work. I don't know, I've never seen Friends actually, but the main place that they go for social aspects is the coffee shop. What is it called? Central Perk, right? And people don't have that now. And so there's been a lot of commentary on like what counts as a third place and what doesn't count as a third place. I made a TikTok on it, basically just pointing out, it's very easy to write off our generation as being like, we don't have these things because we suck and we're losing recipes and blah, blah, blah. And while all of that could be true, yeah, of course, we don't have the same like social traditions that our parents, or maybe not even our parents, but I don't know. It depends, I guess, how old your parents are, but we don't have the same traditions that parents grew up with or people grew up with in the 80s and 90s. That's true. But one of the things I think we have to think about, something that I pointed out on TikTok, is that one, to have a third place is expensive. Like okay, for example, today when I worked remote today, I was going to go sit in a coffee shop, but I was like, well, if I'm going to sit there all day, I'd probably have to like get at least a coffee to start with, but if I'm going to be there all day, I'm probably going to have to eat lunch too. That's already me paying for 2 separate things that, like, granted, I'm not eating at the Ritz-Carlton. That's a hotel, but I'm assuming that they have a hotel, bar, and restaurant that is also equally expensive. You know what I'm saying? But sure, it's not that, but it's also, what am I trying to say? I just lost my train of thought so quickly. But that's probably about, we'll say about $12 that I would have not spent had I just stayed home. And like, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, $12 isn't a lot. But if you want to have a third place that you go to every day or even just every other day, if I went to that third place for the 2 to 3 days I'm working remote, that's $24 to $36 a week. That adds up, babe. So one, I think it's expensive. Now, there are some free spaces. When I made that first TikTok, people pointed out free spaces like parks and libraries, which, yes, those are free to go to. Also, side note, get a library card, support your local library branch. I gotta get mine very soon. But get you a library card, let your local government know that we rocking with books because books is rocking with us. But when I think about places that offer that social aspect, a library is all good and dandy, but you can't really be social in a library. You're not really supposed to be talking too much. If you are talking, it's not like a library on your college campus where like you and your friends could book a study room and just kiki in there all night while people are walking past you, looking in the room, being like, they ain't doing a lick of studying. It's not that kind of library. If I go to the Enoch Free Pratt library, I can't go down there to like start kikiing with people. You need to be quiet. That's couth in the library, right? So you want to be couth. A park is fine, but I'm thinking about something year-round. You're not going to go sit in the park on a week like this where it snowed twice and temperatures are basically 12 degrees. I might though, because the cold never bothered me anyway. Shout out Disney. Actually, don't shout out Disney. But I just think the topic of a third place, there's so much more to think about other than just we suck. I also think about, you know, people talk, something else I think that came out of the third place conversation was people aren't as social anymore. Like when people are in public, we're always on our phones. People don't want to talk to people anymore. Now, baby, I don't know if you've seen the news. Oh, when I'm out in public, I'm minding my business. You don't know who is out there. My brother does a really good impression of my mom whenever she's like talking about, she'd be talking about like, oh, you know, such and such happened on the news. This world is crazy out there. He would do his impression of her was like, they crazy out here. And like, we sometimes laugh at our parents, or we used to laugh at our parents before when they would be paranoid about the world, but I'm telling you, they're not wrong. Like, I'm not gonna sit up here and be like, oh, the world is such a sick, sad place. There are some pockets of the world that are positive, and in everyday life, sure, things are okay. But on the grand scheme of things, it is very scary. Like, I'm not saying that you should hide behind your phone screen all the time, but there's a reason that people are not wanting to engage with people when they're out in public. You don't know who is who, and it is just easier to mind your business. Like, sometimes I do feel kind of bad, like, if I'm on the train or something and someone sits next to me, especially if it's like an older woman who, like, I feel like they maybe want to engage with me, but I'm so sorry, headphones on, blaring Renaissance, and I'm playing my games. I'm playing 2 dots because I'm addicted. Or I'm doing the Wordle because I'm like the last person on the world to get involved into Wordle. But on the other side of that, I can speak from a woman's perspective, because it was a guy that made this TikTok, which I'm sure he meant no harm, but you have to realize how you sound as a man telling people, especially talking to a crowd that has women in it, oh, why don't we ever look up from our phones more often and engage with people? Do you know what happens to women when men try to engage with them in public and the women say no? Let's BFFR, bestie, please. I'm just like, let's acknowledge the facts. We can't acknowledge the world and like social trends without acknowledging how we got here. And it's not as easy as just, oh, we're all on our phones too much, or, oh, we just suck as people. There is a way that we have gotten here that, like, I just don't like when people generalize things to always be like the bottom line of everything is just, we just suck nowadays. Well, no, we don't just suck. The world is a very scary place, and people don't want to be bothered. I also think that's a result of COVID. I think that, I mean, speaking for myself specifically, I mean, I never really liked when people got too close to me in checkout lines at grocery stores. I've actually always hated that, because why if I step back a centimeter, is your cart like literally bumping into my ass? Back up. But specifically now in the stores, like when people are too close, I'm not a mean person. I want y'all to know that right now. I'm not a mean person. But if someone's too close, I will shoot them a little look. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not built like that. And again, you never know who these people are. Some people are crazy. But I will shoot them a little look to be like, you know that one meme? You could back up a little bit. That's how I feel. A lot of how we address social situations is different because of the pandemic. And I think that has all shaped our, you know, why we're always on our phones in public, or why we don't have third spaces. A lot of places shut down because of the pandemic. There is a row, not a row, but like a street that I walk down to get to the bank that I feel like in high school, I remember there being so many businesses and always people on this block, because I had to take the light rail on this street. And I just feel like I remember there being so many places. But now, I'm there, like I walk down this block and everything is boarded up, out of business. And I'm like, where did the culture go? where are the people? Like, it's a lot of third places also got taken away from us. Like, it's unfortunate, it's sad, but it's true. Speaking again in my experience, I'm looking for hair salons. I love all my home braiders, but I just want to go to a salon nowadays. I want a place that has a washer and dryer hooked up in it, and they're not going to charge me extra for it. I want a place where I don't have to come with my hair blow dried. I want a place that doesn't charge me for a deposit, point blank period. But I'm looking for these shops because I also feel like hair salons, barbershops, those are places that offered that third space kind of feeling. And I feel like a lot of those got shut down too. More salons than barbershops, I'm imagining. But it's sad. But it's not, everything is not our fault in the situation. And I feel so bad for our generation when we have people inside our generation constantly being like, we just suck. We're always just... Yeah, some things about the current generation of, you know, young adults, and I guess I'm out of the young adult category, so just like younger adults, I'll say. You have youngest adults, young adults, and then not younger, but I guess like young-ish. And I'm a young-ish adult. But there's so many more social factors that play into certain things. And I feel like when you have these conversations critiquing social trends right now, what we look like as a society, to leave out these social factors, it just does the conversation such a disservice. And it honestly leads you to have a very like uninformed conversation because you're not including everything that needs to be included in the conversation. I feel like that was a very roundabout way to say that, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, I think it might be good to wrap it up here. It's now 11:28 at night, and I just want to relax. I want to take care of my aching back. I want to watch some more Pen 15, and I want to call it there. But thank you all so much for listening. This was a blast. I don't remember if I had an outro in the last episode, so I'll just say, take care of yourselves out there, and keep it realer than real. Bye!